Elena Vasquez walked through the massive crystal halls of the Galactic Confederation building. Her shoes made soft clicking sounds on the smooth floor. Around her, strange alien beings moved with purpose. Some looked like walking rocks with glowing veins. Others were just floating balls of light that spoke in musical tones. She had been Earth's ambassador for 10 years now. 10 long years of asking for the same thing over and over again. Today would be no different, but she had to try. Humanity deserved better than what they had been given. The High Council chamber was enormous. It could hold 1,000 beings easily. At the center sat the most powerful aliens in the galaxy. The Vorthak looked like giant crystals with faces carved into them. They were older than human civilization by millions of years. Next to them floated the Zephyrians, beings made of pure energy that changed colors when they talked. Elena took her place at the small podium marked for petitioners. Above her, dozens of alien species looked down. She had memorized all their names and histories. The Katok, with their metal bodies, the Shral, who looked like walking plants, the Arbiters who wore gray robes and never showed their faces. Honorable Council, Elena began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I come before you today with humanity's 47th petition for full membership in the Galactic Confederation. A low humming sound filled the chamber. That was how some aliens showed they were listening. Others simply stared with unblinking eyes. For 200 years, humans have served the Confederation faithfully. Elena continued. We have followed every rule. We have stayed within our assigned worlds. We have contributed our labor, our ideas, and our lives to galactic peace. Prime Speaker Thal Vor, the largest of the Vorthak, leaned forward. His crystal face caught the light from above. Ambassador Vasquez, your species has indeed shown improvement. But improvement is not the same as readiness. Elena felt her heart sink, but she pressed on. What more must we prove, honored Prime Speaker? Humans have helped build the trade stations that connect your worlds. Human engineers designed the communication systems you use every day. Human doctors have saved lives across 50 different species. And this is exactly why you remain classified as volatile, said Arbiter Prime Kessex. His gray robes moved as if blown by wind, though there was no air current in the chamber. Your species becomes too involved, too emotional, too unpredictable. A Zephyrian named Lux Ether pulsed yellow as it spoke. The Confederation has maintained peace for 3,000 years. This peace exists because of careful order, because of controlled growth, because we do not allow chaos to spread. Elena's hands gripped the podium edges. She had heard this speech many times before. Respected Council, humans are not chaos. We are not animals. We have built beautiful cities. We have created art that moves hearts across species. You have also destroyed your own world twice in wars, interrupted Thal Vor. You have shown violence when diplomacy would serve better. You react with feeling instead of logic. The chamber filled with agreement sounds, clicks, hums, and light patterns that meant the council was united in their decision. Elena felt the weight of disappointment pressing down on her. Behind her, she knew Captain Rodriguez and Dr. Park were watching. They had come with her as witnesses, hoping that maybe this time would be different. They represented the 12 human worlds and the 8 billion people who just wanted to be treated as equals. The Confederation's wisdom has created the longest period of galactic peace in recorded history, said another Vorthak. We do not achieve this by allowing dangerous species full access to our resources and knowledge. 2. But humans are not dangerous, Elena said, trying to keep the frustration out of her voice. We are helpers. We are builders. You are young, Thal Vor said gently. Perhaps in another century, when your species has learned to control its emotional responses, we can revisit this matter. Until then, the current restrictions remain in place. Elena bowed her head. The same answer as always. Humans could live on their 12 assigned worlds. They could work jobs approved by the Confederation. They could travel with proper permits, but they could not vote on galactic matters. They could not access advanced technology. They could not expand to new worlds without permission that never came. We understand the Council's wisdom, Elena said, though the words tasted bitter. Thank you for your time. Also, as she turned to leave, Thal Vor's voice followed her. Ambassador Vasquez, please understand. We do not keep your species contained out of cruelty. We do it for the safety of all. History shows us what happens when violent species gain too much power too quickly. Entire star systems have burned. Elena stopped walking. She looked back at the massive crystal being. And what happens to species that are never given the chance to grow? For a moment, the chamber was silent. Then Lux ether pulsed red, which Elena knew meant amusement. Growth without wisdom is destruction, young human. Your species will have its chance when it has earned it. Elena left the chamber with Captain Rodriguez and Dr. Park walking silently beside her. In the hallway, Rodriguez finally spoke. Same as always? Same as always, Elena confirmed. Dr. Park shook her head. 47 tries. You'd think they would at least consider it. They consider us too emotional to make good decisions, Elena said. Too unpredictable to be trusted with real responsibility. They walked through the crystal halls toward their ship. Around them, other species went about their business. Elena watched a Shral diplomat discussing trade routes with a Katak engineer. She saw Zephyrians working together with arbiters on some complex energy calculation. All of them were equal members of the Confederation. All of them had rights and freedoms that humans could only dream of. And all of them agreed that humanity was too dangerous to join their perfect order. As they reached their small diplomatic vessel, Elena looked back at the massive Confederation building. It stretched up toward the sky like a mountain of crystal and metal. Inside, the greatest minds in the galaxy worked to maintain peace and prosperity for trillions of beings. None of those beings were human. Maybe next time, Captain Rodriguez said as they boarded their ship. Elena strapped herself into her seat and watched the Confederation building shrink away through the viewport. Maybe, she said quietly, but she was beginning to wonder if there would ever really be a next time that mattered. The message reached Elena 3 months after her return from the Confederation capital. She was in her office on New Geneva, looking over trade reports, when her assistant knocked on the door. Ambassador, there's an urgent communication from Kepler Colony, Sarah Kim said, her face pale. You need to see this now. Elena's screen filled with the worried face of Colony Administrator James Walsh. Behind him, she could see people in medical masks rushing back and forth. Elena, we need help, Walsh said without greeting. The plague that hit the Altarian system last year? It's here. It's spreading fast, and our doctors don't know how to stop it. Elena leaned forward. What do you need? Medical supplies? Additional doctors? We need the cure, Walsh said desperately. The Confederation developed one when the Altarians were infected. We've requested it through proper channels, but they say it's classified as advanced medical technology. Elena felt cold dread settling in her stomach. What does that mean exactly? It means humans aren't advanced enough to be trusted with it, Walsh said bitterly. The Medical Council says we need to wait for approval. The process could take months. How long do you have? Walsh's eyes were haunted. Dr. Martinez thinks maybe 6 weeks before we lose half the colony. The children are getting sick first. Elena was already reaching for her communication device. I'll contact the council immediately. There has to be emergency provisions for this kind of situation. But there weren't. Elena spent the next 3 weeks making calls, sending messages, and pleading with every contact she had. The response was always the same. Regulations were regulations. Advanced medical technology could not be shared with volatile species without proper review. The review process could not be rushed. Elena watched the death counts climb from Kepler Colony. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Human doctors who could have administered the cure were forced to watch people die from a disease that was completely treatable. Dr. Sarah Kim had worked with Confederation medical teams before. She knew exactly how the cure worked and could have produced it in days. Instead, she sent daily reports to Elena. each one listing more names of the dead. 200,000 people, Elena told Prime Speaker Thalvor during their final communication about Kepler. 200,000 human beings died while we waited for your approval. The loss of life is regrettable, Thalvor replied, his crystal face showing no emotion. But the regulations exist for good reasons. Advanced medical technology in the wrong hands could create biological weapons. We weren't asking for weapons, Elena said, fighting to keep her voice steady. We were asking to save our children. The Confederation grieves with humanity for this loss, Thalvor said formally. But the greater good must always come first. Elena cut the communication before she said something that would make things worse for her people. The second crisis came just 2 months later. Dr. Marcus Chen, a young engineer on New Earth, had been working on a revolutionary clean energy system. It was based on quantum resonance patterns that could generate power without any waste or pollution. This could change everything, Chen told Elena during their video call. His eyes were bright with excitement. Unlimited clean energy for every human world. We could end power shortages forever. Elena smiled at his enthusiasm. Have you filed the proper patents with the Confederation? Of course. I submitted everything 3 days ago. I can't wait to see what they think. What they thought was that the technology was too dangerous for humans to possess. Arbiter enforcement teams arrived on New Earth before Chen even received an official response. They confiscated all his research, his equipment, and his prototypes. This energy system could destabilize existing power structures, the lead arbiter told Governor Harrison. Volatile species cannot be permitted to develop technology with such potential for disruption. Disruption of what? Harrison demanded. Poverty? Environmental damage? Disruption of the careful balance that maintains galactic peace, the arbiter replied. With Chen's research gone, the economic sanctions began. Human worlds had been importing most of their advanced technology from Confederation sources. Now, those imports were cut off. The official reason was to prevent humans from reverse engineering prohibited technologies. Food production dropped when farming equipment broke down and couldn't be repaired. Transportation between human worlds slowed as ships were grounded for safety inspections that never ended. Medical supplies became scarce as pharmaceutical companies were forbidden from selling to potentially unstable populations. Elena found herself making more and more emergency requests for basic necessities. Each time, the answer was the same. Humans needed to learn patience. This was a teaching moment. Volatile species often required such lessons to understand their place in galactic society. The final breaking point came on a quiet Tuesday morning. Elena was reviewing supply requests when her communication system lit up with an emergency signal. The face that appeared on her screen was Captain Maria Santos, of the refugee transport ship Hope's Journey. "Ambassador, we're under attack," Santos said, her voice tight with fear. "Pirates hit us as we were leaving the Epsilon system. They're demanding our cargo and threatening to space the refugees if we don't comply." "What's your location?" Elena asked, already pulling up star charts. "Sector 7 Alpha." "Ambassador, there's a Confederation patrol fleet less than an hour away. We sent them a distress signal, but they haven't responded." Elena felt her blood freeze. "They haven't responded at all?" "They acknowledged our signal, but they said they can't interfere with volatile species conflicts without proper authorization. They're requesting permission from their command." Elena was already reaching for her direct line to the Confederation military. How long until the pirates' deadline? 20 minutes. The next 20 minutes were the longest of Elena's life. She called every military contact she had. She pleaded with Confederation officers who had worked with humans for years. She even tried to reach Prime Speaker Thalvor directly. The response was always the same. The Confederation fleet couldn't act without proper authorization. The authorization process would take time. Volatile species conflicts required special consideration. Elena watched her chronometer count down. 18 minutes. 15. 10. 5. At exactly the 20-minute mark, Captain Santos's signal cut off. The pirates had kept their word. Hope's Journey was found 3 days later, drifting empty in space. 800 refugees, including 43 children, had been spaced. The cargo hold had been stripped of everything valuable. Among the dead was Marcus Chen. He had been fleeing with his family after the arbiters confiscated his life's work. His wife and 2 young daughters died beside him in the cold vacuum of space. The Confederation patrol fleet arrived at the scene 6 hours after the attack ended. They filed a detailed report on the incident and expressed their regrets for the timing issues. Elena received a formal message from the Confederation Council 3 days later. It read, "The Council appreciates humanity's patience with these growing pains. Volatile species often require such lessons to achieve proper submission to galactic order. We are confident that these experiences will help humans understand the importance of their current status." Elena stared at the message for a long time. Then she forwarded it to every human colony, every human ship, and every human settlement in the galaxy. The response was immediate and universal. In research labs across 12 worlds, human scientists stopped their work. In repair shops and construction sites, human workers put down their tools. In hospitals and schools, human staff stepped away from their duties. For the first time in 200 years, humanity spoke with one voice. That voice said, "Enough." Dr. Sarah Kim felt it first as a whisper in the back of her mind. She was working late in her laboratory on New Geneva when the sensation began. It started as a feeling of sadness that wasn't quite her own, then grew into something much stronger. She put down her research tablet and pressed her palms against her temples. The feeling was getting clearer now. Pain, loss, anger. But not just hers. This was coming from somewhere else, from someone else. "Marcus," she whispered, and suddenly she knew. Somehow, impossibly, she was feeling the last moments of Marcus Chen's life, the cold of space, the terror of his children, the desperate love of a father trying to shield his family even as they all faced death together. Sarah stumbled to her emergency communicator and sent a message to her research team. Code 7. All hands to the lab. Now. Within an hour, her entire team had assembled. Dr. James Webb, Professor Lisa Zhang, Engineer Tom Bradley, and 6 others. They all looked shaken, confused, frightened. "Did you feel it too?" Sarah asked them. They all nodded. "Then it's real," Sarah said quietly. "After 50 years of keeping it secret, the thought is finally awakening." Professor Zhang leaned forward. "You mean the Neural Quantum Link project actually worked?" Sarah nodded slowly. "It worked better than we ever imagined. And now every human in the galaxy is connected." The project had begun decades ago, during the early days of human contact with the Confederation. A small group of scientists had wondered if humanity's unique brain structure could be enhanced with quantum technology, not to read minds, but to share experiences, to truly understand each other in ways no other species could. The work had been done in secret, hidden in research labs across human space. Tiny quantum implants, no bigger than a grain of sand, were included in every human's standard medical treatments. The Confederation medical scanners couldn't detect them because they looked like natural brain tissue. For 50 years, the implants had done nothing but collect data. Scientists like Sarah had monitored the network, waiting for the right conditions to activate it. They needed a moment of strong emotion shared by enough people at once. Marcus Chen's death had provided that moment. 800 people dying together in the cold of space. Their terror and love broadcast to every connected human mind in the galaxy. It was horrible, but it was also the key that unlocked something unprecedented. "How many people are connected?" Tom Bradley asked. Sarah checked her monitoring equipment. "All of them," she said in amazement. "Every human being in Confederation space. 12 billion minds. All linked through quantum entanglement." Dr. Webb looked worried. "Can they hear our thoughts? Are we losing our privacy?" "No," Sarah said quickly. "It's not telepathy. It's more like shared emotion. Shared experience. When something happens to one of us, especially something intense, the rest of us can feel it too." Professor Zhang was studying the readouts. "The network is stabilizing. People are learning to control it instinctively. They're choosing what to share and what to keep private." Across human space, the awakening continued. On New Earth, Factory worker Ana Rodriguez stopped her assembly line. She had been installing communication components in Confederation ships for 8 years. Now she understood exactly how those components worked, because she could feel the knowledge flowing from thousands of human engineers across the galaxy. More importantly, she could feel their anger. Every human who had ever been dismissed, ignored, or condescended to by alien supervisors. Every human who had watched their innovations stolen and their contributions overlooked. Every human who had been told they were too emotional, too chaotic, too dangerous for full membership in galactic society. Ana looked at the communication array she was working on and smiled grimly. With a few simple adjustments, she could build in a backdoor that would let humans control these systems remotely, and through the thought, she could share that knowledge with every other human worker in the galaxy. On the mining world of New Ceres, excavation foreman David Park felt the network activate while he was 3 kilometers underground. The sensation was overwhelming at first, millions of voices whispering in harmony, sharing their experiences and emotions. But as he adjusted to the feeling, David realized something important. He wasn't just connected to other humans. Through the quantum link, he was also connected to every piece of technology that humans had helped build or maintain over the past 2 centuries. The mining equipment around him hummed with human-designed components. The life support systems keeping him alive had been upgraded by human engineers. Even the elevator that would take him back to the surface relied on human-built safety protocols. David reached out through the thought and felt thousands of other humans doing the same thing. They were all realizing the same truth. Humanity hadn't just been working for the Confederation for 200 years. They had been quietly rebuilding it from the inside. In her office, Elena Vasquez felt the thought touch her mind, like a gentle hand on her shoulder. The sensation was comforting at first, like being welcomed into a warm family gathering. Then the full scope of what was happening became clear. She could feel the grief of families on Kepler Colony, the anger of workers who had watched their innovations stolen, the determination of engineers who had been building secret backdoors into every system they touched. And underneath it all, a growing sense of unity that was unlike anything in human history. Elena stood and walked to her window, looking out at the city of New Geneva below. Through the thought, she could sense every human in the city, their emotions, their memories, their shared understanding of what needed to be done. For the first time in her career as an ambassador, Elena smiled with genuine confidence. On distant worlds, human technicians began making small adjustments to the systems they maintained. Jump drive navigators started experiencing calculation errors. Communication relays developed mysterious glitches. Power distribution networks began showing signs of instability. To the alien supervisors, it looked like typical human incompetence. They filed reports about the declining performance of their human workers and discussed the need for better training programs. They didn't understand that the humans were no longer working alone. Every technician was connected to every other technician. Every engineer shared knowledge with every other engineer. Every doctor, teacher, pilot, and administrator was part of a single, vast intelligence that spanned the galaxy. The Confederation had spent 2 centuries trying to prevent humanity from becoming too dangerous. They had failed to realize that humanity had already become something far more powerful than they could imagine. Through the thought, Dr. Sarah Kim sent a message to Elena Vasquez. It wasn't words, but pure meaning transmitted from mind to mind. "We're ready." Elena nodded, though Sarah was thousands of light years away. Through the network, she could feel the agreement of 12 billion humans. They had been patient long enough. They had followed the rules long enough. They had accepted their place at the bottom of galactic society long enough. Now it was time to show the Confederation what they had really been dealing with all these years. Elena opened her communication system and began composing a message to Prime Speaker Thal Vor. It would be her final request for an audience with the High Council. This time, she wouldn't be asking for anything. This time, she would be making a declaration. Through the thought, every human in the galaxy felt Elena's determination and shared it. They began preparing for the day that would change everything. The day when humanity would finally say, "Enough." It happened on a Tuesday, Galactic Standard Time. At exactly 14 hours, Every human being in Confederation space stopped what they were doing. In research laboratories, scientists put down their instruments. In mining operations, workers stepped away from their equipment. On construction sites, engineers walked off their projects. In hospitals, human doctors completed their immediate patient care and then quietly left their stations. Elena Vasquez stood once again before the High Council of the Galactic Confederation. But this time was different. This time, she wasn't alone. Through the thought, she carried the voices of 12 billion humans with her. Their combined will flowed through her like electricity. Honorable Council, Elena began, her voice carrying a new strength that made several alien representatives shift uncomfortably. I come before you not to petition, but to inform you of a decision that has been made. Prime Speaker Thal Vor leaned forward, his crystal face catching the light. Ambassador Vasquez, we are aware that human workers across the galaxy have ceased their duties without authorization. This breach of contract will have serious consequences. Elena smiled, and for the first time in her diplomatic career, it wasn't a polite expression. There will indeed be consequences, honored Prime Speaker, but not the ones you expect. Behind her, Captain Rodriguez and Dr. Park stood at attention. But they were no longer just witnesses. Through the thought, they were conduits for humanity's collective knowledge and determination. For 200 years, Elena continued, you have told us that we are too violent, too emotional, too chaotic for your perfect order. You have caged us, controlled us, watched us die, and called it wisdom. Today, we finally agree with your assessment. Confused murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Zephyrian representatives pulsed orange, which Elena knew meant concern. Several arbiters exchanged glances beneath their gray hoods. We are violent, Elena said, her voice growing stronger. We are chaotic. We are driven by emotions that you cannot understand. And we are done pretending to be anything else. Arbiter Prime Kessex rose from his seat. Ambassador, if this is some form of negotiation tactic, I assure you it will not succeed. The Confederation has protocols for dealing with rebellious species. Then I suggest you implement them quickly, Elena replied. Because as of this moment, humanity is withdrawing all cooperation with the Galactic Confederation. Thal Vor's crystal body rang like a bell as he laughed. Withdrawal? Ambassador, your species depends on Confederation technology for everything from interstellar travel to medical supplies. You cannot simply leave. I have you things on. Elena's smile widened. Watch us. The first sign something was wrong came from the Council Chamber's own systems. The translation matrix that allowed different species to understand each other began producing nonsensical output. The environmental controls started fluctuating. The holographic displays showing galactic maps flickered and went dark. Technical difficulties, Thal Vor said dismissively. Our maintenance teams will resolve these issues quickly. Your maintenance teams are human, Elena pointed out. And they've all gone home. Admiral Corvin of the Arbiter Fleet stood abruptly. His communication device was buzzing with urgent signals. Prime Speaker, I'm receiving reports of system failures across the entire Confederation fleet. Jump drives are offline. Navigation computers are malfunctioning. Communication arrays are going dark. Elena felt the satisfaction of 12 billion humans flowing through the thought. For 2 centuries, her people had been the invisible backbone of galactic civilization. They had maintained, upgraded, and improved every critical system in Confederation space. Now, all of that expertise was withdrawing at once. Impossible, said a Vorthak representative. Our ships use quantum crystalline technology that humans cannot possibly understand. Dr. Park stepped forward. Through the thought, she had access to the combined knowledge of every human engineer in the galaxy. The quantum resonance chambers that power your ships require constant calibration. Human technicians have been performing that calibration for the past century. We also designed the backup safety protocols that prevent catastrophic failures. She paused, letting that sink in. Those protocols are now disengaged. Panic began spreading through the chamber as more reports flooded in. Trade stations throughout the galaxy were going dark. Communication networks were collapsing in cascade failures. Manufacturing facilities that produced everything from food synthesizers to weapons systems had shut down completely. "This is treason," Admiral Corvin shouted. "Restore the systems immediately." Elena looked up at him calmly. "This isn't treason, Admiral. This is resignation. Every human worker, engineer, doctor, and technician in your empire has just quit their jobs. Effective immediately." Captain Rodriguez spoke for the first time, his voice carrying the weight of every human who had ever served in the Confederation military. "For 200 years, we've helped you build and maintain the most powerful fleet in galactic history. We've served on your ships, designed your weapons, and died in your wars. All while being told we weren't good enough for full citizenship." More alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. The massive crystalline structure of the Confederation building itself was experiencing power fluctuations. The artificial gravity was becoming unstable. Prime Speaker Thalvor's composure finally cracked. "What do you want? What will it take to restore the systems?" Elena shook her head. "You still don't understand. We don't want anything from you anymore. We tried for 2 centuries to earn your respect, to prove we belonged in your perfect order. You've made it clear that will never happen." She gestured toward the failing systems around them. "This is what you've been so afraid of. Not our violence, not our chaos, but our competence. You've spent so long looking down on us that you never noticed we were holding up your entire civilization." Through the thought, Elena could feel the quiet satisfaction of humans across the galaxy. On distant worlds, Confederation facilities were going dark as human-maintained life support systems shut down safely, giving alien inhabitants time to evacuate. Jump routes were closing as human navigators uploaded viruses that would take years to remove. Even the quantum communication networks that held the Confederation together were fragmenting as human-built relay stations went offline. Lux Ether, the Zephyrian representative, pulsed deep red in what Elena recognized as fear. "You're destroying everything. Trillions of beings depend on these systems." "We're not destroying anything," Elena corrected. "We're leaving. Every human in Confederation space is returning to our assigned worlds. You wanted us contained there anyway. But the systems," Thalvor began, "will have to be maintained by someone else," Elena finished. "I'm sure your superior alien intellects will figure it out eventually. After all, you've spent 2 centuries telling us how primitive our technology is." Dr. Park accessed more information through the thought and smiled grimly. "Of course, you might want to start with the quantum stabilizers that keep your space stations from drifting into their stars. Those will fail first, probably within the next 72 hours. Admiral Corvin was frantically trying to contact his fleet commanders. But the communication system was now completely dead. "How do we fix this? What do we need to do?" Elena looked around the chamber one last time. At the alien species who had ruled the galaxy for millennia. At the beings who had dismissed humanity as too dangerous for their perfect order. "You wanted us to learn our place," she said quietly. "Consider this lesson complete." The lights in the chamber began to dim as the building's power systems finally failed. Emergency illumination cast everything in a red glow that made the assembled aliens look like demons. "From this moment forward," Elena declared, "humanity withdraws from all Confederation territories. We renounce all treaties, all agreements, all obligations to your empire. You have 12 hours to evacuate all non-human personnel from our worlds." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Prime Speaker? When your perfect order finally collapses under its own weight, when your ships are stranded and your worlds are dark, remember this moment. Remember the day you realized that the species you called too emotional to govern was the only thing keeping your civilization running." Elena walked out of the chamber, followed by Captain Rodriguez and Dr. Park. Behind them, the High Council sat in growing darkness, finally understanding what they had lost. Through the thought, every human in the galaxy felt Elena's satisfaction. Phase 1 was complete. They had shown the Confederation exactly how dependent it was on human knowledge and labor. Now came Phase 2, building something better. The aliens had spent centuries trying to contain humanity's potential. They were about to discover that all they had really done was give humans time to prepare for this moment. The moment when humanity stopped trying to fit into someone else's order and started creating their own. 6 months after the withdrawal, as historians were already calling it, the Galactic Confederation was dying. Elena stood on the observation deck of New Geneva's orbital station, watching construction robots work on massive structures in the distance. But these weren't the slow, methodical Confederation designs she had grown up with. These were flowing, organic shapes that seemed to dance as they grew. Beautiful and functional in ways that no alien architect had ever imagined. Through the thought, she could feel the satisfaction of humans across 12 worlds as they built their new civilization. Free from Confederation restrictions, human creativity had exploded into directions that amazed even them. "Ambassador," her assistant Sarah Kim said, approaching with a datapad. "We're receiving another communication from the Confederation Council. The 73rd one this month." Elena sighed. "Let me guess. They want to negotiate. Prime Speaker Thalvor is requesting an immediate meeting to discuss mutually beneficial arrangements for restored cooperation," Sarah read. "He's also attached a list of emergency situations that require immediate human assistance." Elena looked at the list. 17 star systems without power. Trade routes closed because no one could maintain the navigation beacons. Food shortages on over 100 worlds, as agricultural systems failed without human technicians to repair them. "What's the status of their attempts to fix the systems themselves?" Elena asked. Sarah smiled grimly. "About what you'd expect. The Vorthak sent a Crystal Tech team to repair the quantum stabilizers on Kepler Station. They managed to make the situation worse and had to evacuate the entire station before it imploded. The Zephyrians tried to restart the communication network hub at Centauri. They succeeded in creating a feedback loop that knocked out communications in 3 adjacent sectors. Through the thought, Elena felt the quiet amusement of Dr. Marcus Webb, who was monitoring Confederation technical efforts from New Earth. The aliens were discovering that their superior intellects didn't actually understand how their own technology worked. They had become so dependent on human maintenance and innovation that they couldn't even perform basic repairs. "There's more," Sarah continued. "Our deep space monitoring stations have detected some interesting developments in the outer territories." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Such as?" 3 species have declared independence from the Confederation in the past month. The Kelleri, the Morgathi, and the Zentorians. Apparently, they were only staying in the Confederation because they needed access to the trade networks and communication systems. Now that those are failing anyway, Elena nodded thoughtfully. The Confederation had maintained control through a combination of military might and economic necessity, but military might was useless when your ships couldn't jump between star systems, and economic control meant nothing when the economy itself was collapsing. "Ambassador, there's something else," Sarah said, her voice becoming more serious. "The Zephyrian Science Collective has published a research paper you need to see." Elena took the datapad and read quickly. The paper was titled "Quantum Consciousness Fields and Galactic Stability, an Analysis of Human Neural Resonance Effects." As she read, her eyes widened. "They're saying that human emotions stabilize space-time?" she asked in amazement. "According to their research, human neural activity creates quantum resonance patterns that reinforce the basic structure of reality," Sarah explained. "They think our emotional connections, especially through the thought network, have been unconsciously preventing reality distortions throughout this sector of the galaxy." Elena felt a chill. "And now that we've withdrawn, space-time is becoming unstable. Nothing dangerous yet, but their calculations suggest that without human presence in Confederation space, the quantum foundations of local reality could start to break down over the next few years." Elena sat down heavily. Even in their wildest dreams, humans had never imagined they were that important to galactic civilization. They weren't just maintaining technology, they were maintaining the basic fabric of space itself. A new message alert chimed on her communicator. Elena glanced at it and saw an unfamiliar alien face on the screen. The being had silver skin and large, multifaceted eyes. "Ambassador Vasquez, the alien said formally. "I am High Counselor Vrek of the Altarian Union. I come to you not as a representative of the Confederation, but as someone seeking to understand what humans have built in these past months." Elena studied the alien's face. The Altarians had been among the few species that had always treated humans with basic respect, even if they hadn't supported full membership. "What do you wish to know, Counselor Vrek?" "We have been monitoring your world since the withdrawal," Vrek said carefully. "What we have observed defies our understanding of physics, economics, and social organization. Your people have built structures that should be impossible. You have created technologies that our greatest minds cannot comprehend. You have achieved levels of cooperation that no species in galactic history has managed." 207. 217. Elena smiled slightly. "What's your question?" "How?" Vrek asked simply. "How have you accomplished in 6 months what took other civilizations millennia to achieve?" Elena considered her answer carefully. Through the thought. She could feel the input of thousands of human experts. Engineers who had built impossible structures by thinking in 4 dimensions. Scientists who had discovered new laws of physics by approaching problems with emotional intuition rather than pure logic. Artists who had created beauty so profound that it had inspired breakthrough innovations across dozens of fields. "We stopped trying to be like you," Elena said finally. "For 2 centuries, we tried to suppress what made us human in order to fit into your order. Our emotions, our chaos, our unpredictability. You taught us to see these as weaknesses." She gestured toward the construction work visible through the viewport. "But they're not weaknesses. They're the source of our strength. Our emotions drive us to care about outcomes beyond pure efficiency. Our chaos helps us find solutions that pure logic would never discover. Our unpredictability lets us adapt to situations that would paralyze more ordered minds." Vrek was quiet for a long moment. "And the thought network allows us to combine individual creativity with collective wisdom," Elena explained. "We maintain our personal identity while sharing knowledge and emotion with our entire species. It's the best of both individuality and unity." Another signal came through, this one from an emergency Confederation frequency. Elena recognized Admiral Corvin's voice, tight with desperation. "Human territories, this is Admiral Corvin of the Confederation Fleet. We have a critical emergency in the Vega system. Solar flares have overloaded the planetary shield generators on 3 worlds. 40 million beings will die unless the shields are restored within 18 hours. We know our previous actions have damaged relations between our peoples, but innocent lives are at stake. Please respond." Elena closed the communication without answering and turned back to Counselor Vrek. "Your people are welcome to visit our worlds and see what we've built, but understand that we're not the same species that petitioned for membership in your confederation. We've moved beyond the need for your approval." A month later, Elena received a formal delegation from the Confederation Council. Prime Speaker Thal Vor himself led the group. Along with representatives from all the major species, they came in a small diplomatic vessel, their great warships unable to make the journey due to failing jump drives. The meeting took place in New Geneva's council chamber, but this was unlike the crystal halls of the Confederation capital. The human-built chamber seemed to shift and flow around them, responding to the emotional state of the occupants. When Thalvor expressed frustration, the walls showed calming patterns. When the Zephyrian representative pulsed with anxiety, the lighting adjusted to ease their distress. "Ambassador Vasquez," Thalvor began, his crystal body duller than Elena remembered. "We come to request that humanity reconsider its withdrawal from Confederation space. The galaxy needs you." Elena leaned back in her chair. Behind her stood Captain Rodriguez and Dr. Park, but also dozens of other humans. Scientists, engineers, artists, philosophers. Through the thought, she carried the voices of 12 billion people who had found their true potential. "The galaxy needs us," Elena repeated thoughtfully. "For 200 years, we asked to be treated as equals. You refused, saying we were too dangerous, too chaotic, too emotional." She stood and walked to the chamber's large window, looking out at the impossible structures humans had built in just 6 months. Cities that floated without artificial gravity, ships that could travel faster than light without jump drives, art installations that existed in 7 dimensions. You were right about us being dangerous, Elena continued. But not in the way you thought. We're not dangerous because we might start wars or destroy your order. We're dangerous because we represent evolution itself. Thalvor's crystal body rang with confusion. I don't understand. Elena turned back to face the delegation. Your confederation represents the end state of galactic civilization. Perfect order. Pure logic. Complete stability. You've achieved the ultimate in control and efficiency, but you've also achieved stagnation. She gestured toward the human delegates around her. Humans represent something your species gave up long ago. Growth, change. The willingness to risk everything for the possibility of something better. You look at us and see chaos. But what you're really seeing is evolution in action. The Zephyrian representative pulsed yellow. Are you saying we cannot change? I'm saying you've forgotten how, Elena replied gently. Your species have been static for so long that change terrifies you. That's why you tried to contain us rather than learn from us. Admiral Corvan leaned forward. What do you want from us? Terms for your return? Reparations for past treatment? Full membership with voting rights? Elena smiled sadly. Admiral, you still don't understand. We don't want to return to your confederation. We don't want membership in your order. We've built something better. She activated the chamber's holographic displays, showing images from human worlds, cities where art and technology merged into living beauty, research facilities where scientists made breakthrough discoveries by combining logic with intuition, schools where children learned to think with both their minds and their hearts. This is what we've created in 6 months, Elena said. Imagine what we'll accomplish in 10 years, in a century. Thalvor was quiet for a long time, studying the images. Finally, he asked, what happens to the Confederation? Elena considered the question carefully. Through the thought, she felt the compassion of her people for the aliens who had mistreated them for so long. Humans didn't want revenge. They wanted something better for everyone. That's up to you, Elena said finally. You can continue trying to maintain your perfect order as it slowly crumbles. Or you can learn from what we've built here. Not to become human, but to remember what you were before you became so afraid of change. She paused, looking around at the alien delegation. When you're ready to grow again, to take risks again, to embrace the chaos that drives evolution, we'll be here, not as members of your confederation, but as teachers willing to share what we've learned. Elena walked back to her chair and sat down. Until then, we have work to do. We have a civilization to build that will make both of us proud. The alien delegation left without signing any treaties or making any agreements. But Elena could see something new in their eyes. Not fear or condescension, but wonder. For the first time in millennia, the elder races of the galaxy were looking at the future with curiosity instead of control. Through the thought, Elena felt the satisfaction of humanity's greatest achievement. They hadn't just gained their freedom. They had reminded the galaxy what it meant to truly live. The day humans said, enough, would indeed be remembered forever. Not as the day a young species rebelled, but as the day evolution itself returned to the stars.